be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "The children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. I tell you, make friends for yourselves with dishonest wealth, so that when it fails, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. The person who is trustworthy in very small matters is also trustworthy in great ones. And the person who is dishonest in very small matters is also dishonest in great ones. If therefore you are trustworthy with dishonest wealth, who will trust you with true wealth? If you are not trustworthy with what belongs to another, who will give you what is yours? No servant can serve two masters. He will either hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon." The Gospel of the Lord. Good morning. Today we are observing the 25th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year C, and I think that the Gospel today has two versions, a longer and a shorter form, and there's some significant information in the longer form that is not seen in the shorter form, so I encourage you to look at the longer form of the Gospel today as you meditate on the readings. I'd like to first start out by looking back to the first reading of today, which is from the prophet Amos. And it says right in the very beginning, "Hear this, you who trample upon the needy and destroy the poor of the land." And he goes on to talk about how such people will find disfavor with God. That is, the people who are insensitive to the needs of those around them today who are most in need. And it seems to me that if we really think about it, many people maybe find themselves feeling somewhat maybe jealous or envious of those in the so-called world, that is the broader human community of people who maybe don't share our desire to serve the Lord with everything that we are and our neighbor as ourselves as we're supposed to. And we might look to some people who seem to be so consumed with themselves that they forget to help anybody. Maybe we could probably think of examples of exceedingly wealthy people who seem to have little concern for those who have not been so blessed. I'd like to believe that there are many people among us who, in fact, are doing quite well and have been very blessed, and who are also very generous with what they have. There's no doubt about that. But it is true that sometimes people out there who play the system, who maybe cheat, perhaps steal, maybe have no consideration for those who they might be hurting as they climb up the ladder, so to speak. There are people like that, and we might be able to think of examples of that as we read the newspaper, check our social media feed, or just hear about this or that person that we know about, have heard. And Jesus tells us in the gospel today that those people are often very shrewd. It seems funny. He seems to be kind of complimenting them. He says the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than are children of the light. That sounds like a compliment. But Jesus is not telling us that we should be like those children of the world. That is, those people who, in fact, have no concern for others, but only are maybe narcissistically concerned for themselves and for their own wealth and success, without any consideration for those they might be hurting along the way. He doesn't want us to be like that, obviously. But he does note, and maybe we've noticed, that sometimes those people might even be called ruthless. They might be, may have no consideration for others, and they may seem, because of that, to have become very successful. This is a phenomenon that obviously was true at the time of Jesus and perhaps is true in our own day. And Jesus tells us that those people are, in fact, very shrewd, but it's not a compliment. He does tell us that they are shrewder or more prudent than children of the light. Well, who are the children of the light? I think that, well, we are. We want to be children of the light. That is, people who are in tune with the will of the Father as we go through this world, living our lives and doing what we're supposed to be doing as people of faith. We are the children of the light. And I think Jesus is telling us that sometimes people who are faithful, sometimes we are so driven by our sense of duty and generosity and humility and desire to serve the most needy and all of those good things that we maybe forget that we also have to be prudent, or, to put it another way, somewhat shrewd, at least from a faithful perspective, with the enthusiasm that we have for living out our Christian life in a complicated world. He says the children of this world are more prudent in dealing with their own generation than our children of the light. He wants us to follow their example of enthusiasm, of perseverance, of intention to complete a project or reach a goal. Jesus wants us to be like that, like they are, but obviously for a different purpose. And we remember that in the book of the first reading from Amos, we've heard that such people who are just driven by the attractions and temptations and the desires of this world will, in fact, trample on the needy in the process. We can't be like that. And Jesus reminds us at the end of the gospel today, he says, no servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon. So the point is that in our, as we are servants in this world, our focus should always be God. And the mammon that Jesus refers to are those sort of things of the world, material wealth, prestige, power, all those things. If we are driven solely to that end, then it is impossible, Jesus says, to truly serve God. And how do we serve God? Well, we do exactly the opposite of what Amos talks about in the first reading today. We place ourselves in service to those who are not as fortunate as we are, the most needy. This is how we do it. And we should do so with utter enthusiasm. The same kind of enthusiasm and drive that people in the world have for gaining wealth and prosperity and riches and all that stuff. Let us encourage one another with this simple teaching in the gospel today. And as we live out our faith lives, maybe we could be as prudent or shrewd as people of the world in the way that we aggressively follow the gospel, put it into practice in our lives so that we would be those who never trample on the needs of the needy, but in fact, in serving God, serve others. This is the simple message of our gospel today. As we encourage one another with this message, let's remember that we are children of the light. Let's shine that light brightly to all with whom we come in contact. Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever.